If you've been drawn to the theaters to watch the long-anticipated The Devil Wears Prada 2, starring Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway, you might have noticed some similarities between the beloved 2006 original and its sequel. If you haven't, I'll sum it up in 2 words. Deja vu. It occurred to me about 30 minutes in when Andy stood in front of Miranda bumbling like an idiot and being relegated to a tiny office that I had bought a ticket to watch the exact same movie I have on DVD in my parents' media console. The introduction is the same, the plot progression is the same, and some of the outfits even feel recycled, with ties serving as a stand-in for the chic workwear of the 2006 movie. Once you realize this, the whole film becomes pretty trite and predictable. From the start of the movie, we see the telltale signs of what we've sat down for. My name is Kate, and welcome to the Drama Drive-In. Now, Andy might be an experienced journalist with awards and credits and all these accolades, but she's never written features for a fashion magazine, which means that we start with the exact same protagonist as the first movie, a girl with no options who turns to a job she's never done and doesn't even want. Miranda is the same cruel boss who finds her job on the line with a newer, younger editor-in-chief on her tail. And then there's Nigel. Poor, sweet, capable Nigel, who's seemingly been so blinded by his love for runway that he's never left or even asked for promotion. Naturally, it's been 20 years and he's in the exact same position. Miranda's right-hand man, who somehow nobody except Andy can tell is desperate for more. When you follow the formula of the original movie so closely, the plot twist, if you can even call it that, becomes obvious. Someone is gonna screw someone else over to stay in charge. We just don't know who yet. The film is certainly fun, but it lacks the gravitas of the original. The formula didn't just work for the first movie, it was brilliant. The story captured the brutality behind the beauty in a cutthroat industry and gave us a delicious villain to feed off of. Miranda was exactly what the audience wanted. She was sharp, ruthless, and dedicated. Beyond everything, we could tell this was a woman who cared about the art and the culture that she was creating every day, and the movie made audiences reckon with an art form that they previously considered frivolous or vain. Think of the Cerulean monologue. The depth and commentary that solidified The Devil Wears Prada as a classic is simply missing from the sequel, and part of that is because our villains have seriously lost their bite. Rather than having one antagonist, the writers spread the conflict to 2 characters and subsequently diluted their personalities. Emily now works for Dior, which immediately tells us that she's turned away from editorial work and moved on to retail. It's less creative and much more consumer-driven. And her plan to get her hands on runway? Date a billionaire and make him buy it for you, then put yourself on the cover. The plan lacks vision or personal determination, and more than anything, artistic drive. Miranda, former Dragon Lady, is now being corralled by her assistant, rolling over and letting the big men in suits determine the fate of her career, and giving advertisers whatever they want. Who is this woman? The clear message in The Devil Wears Prada was that while everyone doubted Miranda, it was impossible to ignore that she was the best at her job. They might have wanted someone fresh-faced, they might have believed that she had lost her touch. But anytime Miranda walked into that office, she proved exactly why she had that spot. Today, however, she fails to verify a brand that uses sweatshops before she reviews them, and she's framed more as politically incorrect than as an intense boss who demands perfection. The writers show us time and time again that she is behind the times. She doesn't understand the role social media plays in modern publications, and we see her even still committed to the physical book that's brought to her every night. There's a fundamental gap in her modern sensibilities that would have made for amazing writing if the film had taken the risk and gone for the equally interesting ending. Miranda realizing that to care about runway meant recognizing she was no longer fit to be the editor-in-chief. Instead, the sequel delivers an ending nearly identical to the first, with Miranda still at the helm and almost no change in the power structure that has clearly led Runway down a perilous road. The message? You can be old and out of touch and still convince everyone that you're the best person for the job. And I guess although it's not completely unrealistic, it's still incredibly annoying. Miranda and Emily aren't the only characters that change, but Andy seems to have gone in the opposite direction, and she seems almost more naive and childish than she did in the first movie. Rather than seeing a character who's grown into herself and developed a strong sense of independence, consistent with the arc that they started writing for her at the end of the original movie, our protagonist is somehow a 45-year-old woman with 20 years of journalistic experience, stumbling around and lying to her boss about leads. At times, she comes off anxious, and she still clings to Nigel like a safety blanket. Oh, and she still dates losers. It's not to say that these characters are unlikable or unable to make an interesting story. They're just not the same characters from this universe, which is why the recycled plot just doesn't fit. Now, a major point in The Devil Wears Prada 2, feeding off the message of the original, is prioritizing art over retail. The goal of Runway is to create trends and prop up designers, fueling artistry and innovation in the world of fashion. This is so obvious that they even mock Emily for making her way over to Dior and building a career off of retail, pursuing profit over craftsmanship. The goal is to make something original, something never seen before, a cultural statement above financial gain. And yet, this movie is the complete opposite. It is an imitation. Now, I will allow that the imitation is fun, because contrary to how this video is making it seem, I did have fun while I watched the movie. But I was rarely wowed. Aside from Simone Ashley, which, seriously, wow, there were very few fashion moments that left me stunned. Ironically, a lot of the fashion moments just followed micro trends rather than trying to create something original. I mean, seriously, I could make a drinking game out of how many ties were worn in this movie. It felt like each character was wearing costumes rather than feeling like these people actually have a sense of style that is lived in and inherent to them and their lifestyles. The color grading was similarly flat, making it feel more like a commercial for all the brand logos that were dropped into scenes than feeling like an actual film. Everything is so black and white, with most of the outfits lacking inspired color choices or bold patterns that would make sense for the story. Even the scene with the in-universe version of the Met Gala had a feeling of artifice that wasn't present in the original. The entrance to the gala in The Devil Wears Prada shows Andy and Emily conversing as they enter, with photographers in the background. The outfits look expensive and the set is expansive. In this new iteration, Miranda and Nigel are flanked on all sides by photographers so close so you can hardly see the rest of the set, which kind of makes it feel overcrowded and very obvious that it's a set instead of an actual gala. The contrast between the movie's message and its execution is so ironic it's borderline meta. A movie about artistry and originality being told through a recycled plotline wasn't on my 2026 bingo card, but maybe it should have been. I got an inkling of the nostalgia bait from the trailers, and I'll admit I watched the movie with my mom because of our shared love for The Devil Wears Prada, and it was certainly entertaining. If nothing else, we got to laugh and judge for 2 hours, which is prime mother-daughter bonding activities. And admittedly, we didn't walk in with the highest expectations. I wasn't expecting the same intensity and depth as the first film, but I was caught off guard by how little self-awareness the film held of itself and what made the original such a classic. With a budget 3 times the size of the 2006 production and a star-studded cast, the writers had the potential to make something incredible and instead settled for redundancy. Or maybe, just maybe, this secondhand script was actually a meta commentary on the banality of the film industry and the greed of big production companies. I doubt it, but I suppose we'll never know. That is until they make the 2036 installment, The Devil Wears Prada 3, this time with more ties. This has been the Drama Drive-In. Thanks for watching.